Davis. He's the author of The Unmaking of the President. 2016, also served as the former White House special counsel of the Clinton administration from 1996 to 1998. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
The subhead of your book, if you look at it, you lay this directly at the feet of the former FBI Director James Comey. Why is that?
Well, I just looked at the statistics. I tried not to offer opinions. I have opinions on Mr. Comey. I think that Rod Rosenstein had it exactly right. What he did was a firing offense when he offered his opinion on the evidence on July 5th, 2016, something that is not allowed and is a firing offense. When he offered his opinion on Hillary Clinton's email practices, not allowed. And then when he sent a letter on October 28th, 11 days from an election, violating over 50 years of Justice Department's policies, defying the Deputy Attorney General's wishes, he did it anyway because he, James Comey, gets to decide what is right and what is wrong. And that narcissistic attitude is what caused Rod Rosenstein to write a memo. This is the appointed Deputy Attorney General by Donald Trump. And he was exactly right. And even in retrospect, James Comey would not tell Mr. Rosenstein he had any regrets. That's what a narcissist does. He defines what's right. His book is has the words higher loyalty. His higher loyalty is not to the law, to the policies, or to the rules. He gets to violate them. He gets to define what that loyalty is, and it cost Hillary Clinton, statistically, I prove, the presidency.
You reference statistics quite a bit, particularly looking at polling. Why do you make that case? Why do you specifically are looking at the polls to make this case for you?
Well, I looked at 3 or 4 different ways. One is the head-to-head contests before the October 28th letter and immediately after for the next 11 days. Then I also looked at emotions and impressions that changed between right before the October 28th letter and right after. In every measurement, not just the head-to-head polls, which, by the way, the national polls were within 1.2% of accuracy. So the polls did call the election. Hillary Clinton won by 3 million votes. That was the prediction under the Real Clear Politics average. But I did more than just polls. And if I could show you some charts for your viewers, it would actually visually prove my case.
Why don't we talk about the net drop that Hillary Clinton saw from the time of the announcement to the time of the election?
Okay, well, I think this would be chart number 2. The first chart is as of the morning of the 28th of October, the national average of all polls, national popular vote, showed her ahead by 5.9%, the morning of October 28th. With all of her mistakes, the emails, the server, everything she was criticized for, which she has taken ownership of, she's ahead by 5.9% in the average of Real Clear Politics polls. That's a larger margin than Barack Obama defeated Mitt Romney in 2012. Now look what happened in chart 2. October 28th, she's ahead by that margin in the 3 critical states which would have allowed her to win the presidency had she carried. That is Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. She's ahead by 5 to 7 points in those 3 states, large margins in states that are actually purple states that have Republican governors, Republican legislatures that have gone on either way. Now look what happens like a stock market crashing within days of the October 28th Comey letter. Nothing else intervened, no great Trump surge, no change in news, just headlines saturating the American people. Hillary Clinton under new criminal investigation because Jim Comey decided to violate the rules and send a letter to Congress with no facts, all speculation. We're going to look, instead of looking first, before sending the letter, and that cost her the election.
You reference in the book, but if you go back to that same poll that shows that dramatic drop that you talked about, you'll see 3 states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, states that she admitted and other people admitted that she should have spent more time in. Don't you think that was a contributing factor to the loss, not only Jim Comey's contribution to it?
Let me give you a short answer. No. First of all, the total margin in those 3 states, in Pennsylvania, 0.7%. That's under 1%. In Michigan, 0.2%, and in Wisconsin, 0.7%. Russ Feingold ran for the Senate in Wisconsin. He campaigned every day of his campaign in Wisconsin, every day. On the morning of October 28th, he was ahead the same margin as Hillary Clinton by about 6 or 7 points. He crashed after the Comey letter, just as Hillary Clinton did, and he campaigned every day. So it wasn't a matter of Hillary Clinton not campaigning there. There was a causation event The sending of that letter caused her to drop in the polls precipitously like a rock in a pond for the next 10 days. Saturated news coverage round the clock, according to the Harvard Shorenstein Center. Saturated news coverage with the headline on cable television, on network television, in all the major newspapers, Hillary Clinton under criminal investigation. Now, 2 days before the election, Mr. Comey sent a letter. Early Sunday morning, it was a little whisper, and he said, oops, sorry, got it wrong, nothing there. Sorry, Mr. Comey, a little too late.
We'll invite the callers to ask questions of our guest, Lanny Davis. If you want to call, 202-748-8001 for Republicans, 202-748-8000 for Democrats, and then Independents, 202-748-8002. We'll take you back to the time where Jim Comey makes that initial assessment in July. Here's a bit of that, and we'll get your reaction to it.
Although the Department of Justice makes final decisions on matters like this, we are expressing to Justice our view that no charges are appropriate in this case. I know there will be intense public debate in the wake of this recommendation, as there was throughout the investigation. What I can assure the American people is that this investigation was done honestly, competently, and independently. No outside influence of any kind was brought to bear. I know there were many opinions expressed by people who are not part of the investigation, including people in government, but none of that mattered to us. Opinions are irrelevant, and they were all uninformed by insight into our investigation because we did our investigation the right way. Only facts matter, and the FBI found them here in an entirely apolitical and professional way.
Mr. Davis, you don't buy that argument.
Well, first of all, what Mr. Comey did, everyone understand this. A criminal investigator, whether you're the head of the FBI or a detective working for a local police force, isn't allowed to call a press conference and express an opinion on evidence without charging. A senior Justice Department official was quoted in Vanity Fair saying, you know what we don't do in America? We don't shame and not charge. What Mr. Comey went on to do was to express an opinion. First, he said, we're not charging Mrs. Clinton because there was no criminal offense, and that's a correct outcome. But then he said she was, quote, extremely careless in the handling of her emails. Her polls went down because the headlines wasn't that she was cleared after a one-year investigation. The headlines were James Comey's opinion on the evidence in a criminal case. That was a firing offense that Rod Rosenstein, the Republican-appointed, Trump-appointed Deputy Attorney General, told Mr. Comey and asked him, do you have any regrets about violating a rule? You're not allowed to express an opinion on the evidence unless you publicly charge. That's been a rule protected by the Due Process Clause. But Mr. Comey doesn't use those rules. He answers to a higher loyalty, as he says in his forthcoming book. That higher loyalty is James Comey gets to decide. I, James Comey, don't have to follow the rules. And that's why he sent the October 28th letter violating 50 years of policies that you don't speak at the Justice Department within 60 days of a presidential election. Republican and Democratic attorneys generals, FBI directors, everybody followed that rule but one person, James Comey. Why? He gets to decide what is the higher loyalty, and that narcissism is what cost Hillary Clinton the presidency.
Aside from Mr. Comey's role, and then what about the fundamental issue of how Hillary Clinton handled her emails herself? Isn't that a concern that people should know about and at least be able to express?
No doubt. And let me just look at the camera and express this the way Hillary Clinton expressed. She made many mistakes. The emails, the server, the way she handled the emails, other things that happened in the campaign. What campaign doesn't make mistakes? The successful ones, we all forget about the mistakes. Barack Obama ran 2 successful campaigns. He'd be the first to tell you, as with David Axelrod, many mistakes. 2 things can be true. 1, Hillary Clinton made a lot of mistakes she takes responsibility for. 2, but for that October 28th letter, on the morning of October 28th, she is winning by a landslide, 5.9%. Larger than, and if I could look at slide 3, if you have it up on the camera, this is the electoral map that would have occurred but for the Comey letter, according to Real Clear Politics and every other analyst that has looked at the map. That would have been the case had James Comey not violated all the rules, except the ones that James Comey gets to establish, and that would have been the result, and Hillary Clinton would have won. But she also made many mistakes.
Some of those polls is part of the basis of our guest book, The Unmaking of a President 2016, How FBI Director James Comey Cost Hillary Clinton the Presidency. Lanny Davis, our guest. First call for you comes from Ron. He's in New Hampshire. Democrats line, you're on with Lanny Davis. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.